Oh, you know what? I was just saying on my other YouTube channel for the digital marketing that sometimes you have to have a cajillion plans in place um, because things will happen. So we are bringing our conversation here. My mother will have to watch this later because my mother she adores Joe. Joe is like one of her kids because we go that far back. So we are waiting for Josie Pickens to come in. Oh, she's there. Okay, so maybe I'm going to suggest that you request to join because maybe that'll make this easier for us. Sometimes that's the easier thing to do, or at least that's what I've found. Let us see here. Let us see. Let's see. Okay, now the technology gods need to give you a break because I know I added you, so we're gonna see. There it is.
My goodness!
I hear you. Okay, let's see here. Do I need let me see. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, yeah. Because sometimes depending on what platform I'm using, I have earbuds. Sometimes I don't, so it's really hard to tell. But man, technology said, "Not today, sisters. Not today." I know what y'all trying to do.
Restful, okay? Pressing everybody.
I'm like, black women get together to have a conversation, and that's when the universe is like, "I'll be damned."
Oh man, just tired.
Well, I was true. I mean, I got me a little something to drink. I meant that. I meant exactly that.
So what are you drinking? Let's start there.
Well, I was on Instagram last time, and it is that honey flavored whiskey Deception. They are based out of Dallas. So, if I'm gonna sip on something, I want to sip black first, and then we can go to something else after the fact. But I start there first. That's how I do it. So let's just do a quick introduction.
Yes.
Of what's about to go down. I was still thinking, well,
I feel like all of this, everything is like switched up now. I know we were supposed to record on YouTube.
It automatically records, so we'll just have to download it.
Okay.
Meta wants to host it and keep all the data.
A fan of IG Live.
Let me tell you real quick. No, I appreciate the platform. I really do. Lord knows I do. But it is the fact that you have to fight to get your data out of Meta. That's a problem for me. Like that, I don't want to fight for anything. I want to be able to control my content and my image as much as possible. So that's what it goes. Okay, so let's do this before we get into our topic of what we're about to talk about. Let's do a quick introduction.
Yes.
I know I was saying last week when I was mentioning us doing this, I had mentioned that you are the better half of me. You're a better version of me. Let me just go ahead and say that. I tell people all the time that Joe is like we're like yin and yang, but she is definitely what I could have been if I had decided to be more gracious in life. And I think about some of the situations that are presented to you, and you are just so gracious, and I'll use the word kind and caring your response. And me, I'm more like, if you just punch that person in the throat, maybe they'll get it. And you're like, yeah, that's not what we should be doing. So I appreciate that you have that presence. And as you mentioned, our relationship goes back years. Like 30 years. Yeah. And it's one of those, I know I was the back of the classroom kid, so I am certain I did not approach you for friendship. I'm positive about that. But, we have so much in common. Like, our fathers are both from some part of Louisiana.
Yeah.
They were both named Clarence.
Yes.
We had the exact same home address for our parents, just different streets.
Yes.
So, it really is in another universe. This is what I would be like. I would be Joe.
Yeah. Well. Yes, and I feel the same way. Like we play off of each other well. I think. Like I know that there are some times where I'm like, maybe I do need to punch somebody in the throat. That might be beneficial.
Right.
So, but yes, 30 years of friendship, starting in high school, and which we're telling our ages by saying that it's
that was good. I mean,
we do look good.
Okay. You know what I'm saying? Like, come on now, come on now.
We do look good. We do look good, but we are like in our good mid 40s.
Yeah.
Moving towards 50, which is like so wild for me to say and think about, but.
All right.
Yeah. I'm just like, I still see myself as like, a 20-something, a 30-something at most.
Yeah, I feel like a 20-something. People are like, really? It's like, I mean, every now and then, I start sweating like an old pig, and I'm thinking, is that perimenopause? Is that what that is? So.
Oh yeah, there are definitely those moments where you're reminded, like, oh, I am not young. I started like going back to this fitness studio and doing these like HIIT workouts. So like I do yoga regularly, but like not like that kind of like movement. When I tell you, I had a workout where we were working out upper body, and I was so sore that I could not like put my earrings in my ear. And I was like, oh girl,
these muscles actually exist? That they do.
Is a different day.
So last Friday? Was it? I don't know, because they all feel alike. Maybe it's 2 Fridays ago. I can't remember.
Yeah, maybe.
Was it 2 Fridays ago? It don't even matter. We were talking about. I was talking to you about the subject of being an emotional mule, right? And I was just saying how we don't talk about it a lot in regards to women. There are so many things with women, particularly, as I like to phrase it. There is a war on women from the moment you are born, if I may say so. The war is on, and when you recognize it, just really depends on. I'll use the word programming. Is what I'll go with.
Right.
So we were talking about with women how we are often the people who carry the weight of others, right? Yes. There is a place, and I'll say for us about being Black women, how we have a couple of narratives of being the super strong Black woman, being the angry Black woman. When you decide to articulate your boundaries and how you will be treated, you get the angry Black woman response. Absolutely. And so I just wanted to, have this chat with you, because we've had these kinds of conversations about women and Black women, and particularly, and just how we are seen, right? So let me just start with something about when I say the war on women, and feel free to jump in and chime in, because this is a free-flowing conversation. This is not we're just gonna go with it. Yes. Now, my mama might watch this later, so I'm going to remind us to be aware of our guest filters. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. We quick to drop as my dad would say, a couple of MFs real quick, you know what I'm saying? And he didn't mind, but
G and I both enjoy curse words. We love language, and we love colorful language. Okay.
Colorful language. It's like spice for your cooking. But okay, so this war on women, there is this traditional programming that when you're a little girl, you're fed, right? So it's the idea of being someone's mother, the idea of being someone's wife, being chosen for someone. So, I remember hearing, not from my parents, but from other people, that you'll go to college,
you'll have someone choose you to be their spouse, and then you'll be their mother. And the idea of keeping a clean home and knowing how to cook so you can care for other people. There's this constant message of being fit, right? Being attractive, doing all the work. And I would love to get your thoughts on Angela White, who used to be known as Black China.
Yeah.
Let me get your thoughts on that.
Yeah.
And even more so, that pregnancy is beautiful until you're no longer pregnant.
Right.
Because, you know, you no longer have this glow. Now it's this after body, and can't you lose the weight? So this programming that we have,
Yeah.
let me just start with you, because I have witnessed your transformation. When did you decide that you were going to be Joe, all Joe, and how did you get to that point?
Oh my gosh. Well, I think that programming is so real. First of all, you know, I remember reading this essay once and I forget the exact name or the author, so y'all excuse me, but the premise of the essay was that it was an essay about a woman who rejected dolls as a child, right? Like, she hated dolls and she would always destroy them when she received them. And it was because we start giving girls, especially, dolls almost from like the moment of birth, right? So literally from as soon as a girl child, and you know, we can have conversations about gender identity and all of that at another time. But like, once we have decided that a child is a girl child, right? Then we automatically start grooming her to be a caregiver. Like, that's what dolls do, right? And so you start getting this message of like, oh, where's your baby? Oh, you left your baby. You have to take care of your baby, right? Meanwhile, boys are given like weapons of war, you know, G.I. Joes, Legos, something that, you know, where they can think. Now, of course, this has changed a lot. I was born in the late 70s, in like 76. And so now, you know, there are toys that are a bit more cognitive, with cognitive development and gender neutral and all of these things. But for a lot of women of our generation, like, we, from the very beginning, we were taught we're supposed to be caregivers. And I think all the time about how I adopted ideas around feminism pretty early, but they were very much ideas that were centered in theory. So like things that I read, especially in college, like, you know, you start reading Bell Hooks and Patricia Collins and all of these Barbara Smiths and all of these feminist thinkers. And, you know, so you develop this like praxis and this ideology around wanting to be free from ideas around gender and gender expectation and gender identity, like all of that, right? Gender norms, because you realize that they are meant to keep, you know, women in a particular place, and it really stunts the growth of a lot of women if they're not careful, you know? Because the thing about being trained to be a caretaker from a very early age is that caretaking is selfless work. And so when you're trained to be a caretaker, you automatically like give up yourself in the process of that. And I think that I understood the ideas of feminism, but it was when I got married and became a mother that I really became a feminist. You know? Because I realized that, oh, I have gone through this pregnancy. I had a very difficult pregnancy and birth. My daughter was a preemie. My entire life changed. Everything that I knew or thought I knew transformed literally within 24 hours. Like, or maybe once I found out I was pregnant. I went from this very independent life where I can make whatever choices and decisions that I wanted. And I moved from that to like all of a sudden being completely responsible for this other human being, and everything in my life was expected to change because I'm now a mother and a wife. Meanwhile, my husband, now ex-husband's life, nothing had to change. That still holds today. My daughter is 17 years old, you know? And so that is when I really started being like, oh, F this system, and really understanding gender and the things that we teach women and the roles of women and like how it impacts us. So, but I think that as I've grown, and really in the last few years, I've just began to unpack like how that programming can really like not only hold us back, but like keep us from experiencing and achieving so much. Because even though I feel that I'm pretty independent thinker, I exist in the world and do all of the things that I kind of want to do, I realized that programming of caretaking was still very much a part of like what my identity was. And I remember speaking to my therapist, because yes, I do have a therapist. I remember speaking to her and talking about like all of these caregiving roles that I found myself in that I kind of resented. And this was like in relationships, being an educator, which is, you know, education is the helping profession, right?
It is.
And even being a single mother, like all of this caretaking responsibility. And one of the things that she told me, she said, caretaking is not an identity. It's something that we do. It's not who we are. And I thought that I understood that. Like, I'd done all of the reading and I lived like my life in a way which people would absolutely believe like that is not an issue. And caretaking and people pleasing and all of this is not an issue. But that programming is so strong that I was just falling into this role and like pretty pissed about it, but also not really sure how to escape it or like what else is there, like, you know. And so I am,
because I'm just like, when you mentioned the whole deal of being a mother and being married and caring for your child and being responsible for her, two things came to mind. I remember as a teenager, preteen, how my brothers, you know, they're not too far behind me, but my sister and I were taught at a young age to cook in the household. And then even though they were able to cook for themselves, my mother would make us cook for them. Now, I gotta tell you, I was already militant at a young age. And I remember asking her, like, why do we have to cook for them when they can cook for themselves? Right? Now, beyond the idea of I told you so, there wasn't really any other reason. But that was the deal. It's like, if there was going to be dinner in the house, it was either myself or my sister who had to cook. Now, of course, you know, my father cooked a lot, but it was us who were really focused on making meals and things of that nature. And I got to a point where I was just like, I don't want to cook anymore. Like, I just refuse to do it. And I refused to do it.
Interesting, because your father was a professional chef.
Yeah.
And so it's like, so again, when we think about gender norms and like programming around gender, it's like patriarchy teaches us that women are supposed to be in the kitchen. And even as your father, who loves to cook, who loves that, you know, was able to kind of escape that programming for himself, it was still programming that continued with your brothers.
Yes. And my mother, and I love her dearly, trust me. But my father cooked for my mother the entire time. You know that. Like, when she retired, he would make sure that she had her meal on the table. That's just what it was. So I thought to myself, you got a man cooking for you. Why am I doing all of this? Like, I don't understand. I don't understand. And I do recall becoming a little combative and saying, I'm not cooking. And so then it became my sister, and she's like, fine, I'll do it. I'm thinking, if we stand together, we can change it. We can change it, right? But we didn't stand together. But she's like, well, how come she's not doing it? I was like, because I'm not doing it. I am not.
Yeah.
But it was those kinds of things. But the second thing I thought of, along with just like what happens in your household as a kid that keeps you in that same mindset, was that I do recall a colleague who she'd had 2 kids and she had just had her baby coming back and she was trying to figure out how to do it all. And I was like, but don't you have a husband?
Right.
Like, where's his part in this? But you see it a lot with professional women where they have to manage doing the profession and being the mother and being available at all times. And if they can't, then it's like, well, you suck as a mother. Whereas we completely forget there's this other partner in the household.
Yes.
If and it just goes, it's like, well, I don't want my dad or my mother there. It's like, well, yeah, but you can't be. And so you find women being conflicted with, I don't want to be that mother. Right. But then how do I have all of this stuff? So it's either I do my career and have a kid later on in life, or I take care of the kids and then I have to identify who I am and come back to that.
Yeah. It's unfair.
Yeah.
It is unfair that women are expected to work as if they have no children and care for their children as though they are stay-at-home moms, which is still work.
It's work. Yeah, that's
I
work.
don't want to say stay at home as though they're not working, because being a stay at home mom is a parent is absolutely work. Yeah. And these are things that men for the most part don't have to contend with. When men, and maybe this is changing, but we're just getting to the point where men are taking paternity leave. We're thinking about like, oh, how can I should be taking part in these caregiving roles as well. We're just kind of getting to that point. So it's like, I definitely felt the weight of that. That is what drew me into therapy. I was like, I remember going into my therapist's office. I was like, I feel like a slave. I am over here. I've had to strip myself from everything that I know and love to take care. And again, my daughter had special needs. She was a preemie when she was born, and so she required even more care, right? And everything about my life changed, and nothing about my ex's life changed. Yeah, still to this day, he moves about as though like that's not a concern. And so it's unfair. It is a burden for women, and it is something that we have to demand. And I think it's a particular conversation for Black women, because Black women are expected to be soft and strong simultaneously, and to just be essentially mules, like. I was like, I want to say this, but I'm trying to figure out how to say it graciously, but sometimes there is no graciousness to it. You just got to say it. Right. It is like this, you're supposed to be able to pile everything on us. Yeah. And we're supposed to handle that. And that is something that is a communal storytelling and a communal narrative that we have to break. So many of us watched our mothers, regardless of gender. So boys watch mothers be superwomen, right? And girls watch their mothers be superwomen. So girls imagine that is my place to handle it all, right? To manage the household, to cook, to clean, to but also be ambitious and have goals and work towards those goals. But also be a good mother, but also be sexy and attractive to our partner. But also there's always something. There's always, I was thinking when you mentioned all of that, 2 commercials come to mind. So that at-home father, where, and it sticks in my head because it's so clear. Actually, I'm thinking back 3 commercials. One of them I thought, who even approved this commercial? There is one that's Mr. Clean,
and there's a woman who's like, smelling the Mr. Clean bottle, and then she looks at her husband with the bad body, the gut and all,
Right.
and all of a sudden he becomes this, attractive guy because of Mr. Clean.
Because
So he can walk around the house looking like whatever, but it's okay, right? Your next commercial is Swiffer. This is the one with the little boy. He's cutting his sister's hair. But the mother is like, she's decked out. She's got her pearls on, her cardigan, her heels, her pants, and she's cleaning. Ain't nobody cleaning the house looking like that. Like, it's so unreal.
Right.
But they put these messages out there
like
to say,
like
this is what works.
Like, I'm supposed to be a sexy maid
Right.
and nanny. Like the sexy nanny.
Yeah.
The sexy maid.
But I think it was Advil, and it was right after the height of COVID. There is, I want to say, it's a Hispanic mother. She's leaving her first job. She gets on the bus to go home to her child who needs to do homework, and their whole deal is Advil's going to get her through the rest of the night. I'm thinking, why are we even celebrating the message of the single mother who doesn't have a car, who's working 2 jobs and so has to come home? Like, that's not a celebration. Who's this message? Right?
Yep.
Like, who does that? Like, what are you talking about? So we were talking about the deal of some of these characters, that strong black woman, because I know for myself, people see what they want to see, right? There is a totem pole, and there was a young man I talked to the other day where he mentioned how, you don't really see a celebration of black women. You just don't see it. You just don't, right? Like, it's just not there. You can talk to some people who don't look like us, and they will tell you that they are doing what they do to preserve their way of life and their women.
Right.
We don't get that in the black community, right? So,
and I think that it's also important to interrogate how we celebrate black women, right?
Yeah.
Like this idea that when we do celebrate black women, we focus on them being resilient and strong. We focus on them being accomplished. So it's like either you're a gold digging welfare queen, or you're like black girl magic, right? And it's like black girl magic is what you're shooting for and what you're aiming for and what you want to be seen as. But like, there's a toll for that. Because part of like being black girl magic is like taking a licking and keep on ticking, right? Like, it is this idea of resilience. Yeah. I remember seeing a meme, or it was a tweet that was turned into a meme, but it was like, please, like, I never want to be called resilient again.
Yeah.
Or like when people are
strong.
Like, you're strong, or you're independent.
Strong.
Like, who said that? Don't assume.
Yeah.
I'm not independent. I need help. Buy me gifts, take me places.
Yeah.
Like, fix some things, help me out.
Yeah.
Not around here. I need the help. I need support. I need care. Like, and I'm not strong. I remember there was a conversation I was invited to where I got to, this was before the great Bell Hooks passed away, who you know is my heart and has taught me so much about love, really. And in that conversation, she talked about how she never allows people to call her strong, and this idea of like the strong black woman archetype, right? And she said, because when people call black women strong, what they're saying is, you're strong like an ox. You're strong like a mule. I can pour everything onto you. I can add things to your back, and you're going to be able to take it. Because again, it's strong and resilient. She said, no, I prefer powerful. Call me powerful. She says, because power means that, like, essentially, and this is paraphrasing, that I'm in charge, that I have autonomy, that I get to make choices. Power means that I can say no. Power means that I can say, help me.
Yeah.
This is what power means. as opposed to like being strong. And that really resonated with me. And it is something that I have really, really been working towards, is being powerful, and in my power, being able to say like, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm not interested in that. I am not here to, and if you're disappointed, you'll be okay. Because guess what? People have to learn how to deal with disappointment. You know? As opposed to just being like, yes. And it's surprising when you have to have those conversations after being in that role of like being a mule, right?
Yeah.
You're kind of doing all of this work, doing all of this labor, keeping everybody else afloat as a caregiver. And not having any of that reciprocated to you but you're strong and you're resilient. You got this. Like, I started to post something about this yesterday. Like, please don't tell me you got this. If I come to you, I'm struggling with something, because it's hard enough to do that as a Black woman, right? Because we're taught that we are supposed to be strong, and that anytime that we may need help, anytime that we may need support, anytime that we're feeling less than Black girl magic, that's weakness, and that we could be ashamed, right? And so I'm finally at the point where I'm like, listen, my life is in shambles right now. I need help. People are like, oh, you got it. This too shall pass. It's like, no. Please tell people I am so sorry that you're having a hard time. Yeah. I am so sorry that you are out here having to wear all of these hats and that you don't have any place to rest in your life. Yeah. I'm sorry you don't have the support that you deserve. And also, how can I support you? Like, that's how we need to start showing up for Black women. Because that is how Black women show up for others. Everybody we even struggle to show up like that with ourselves. Yeah.
Yeah. For sure. And I'm thinking about in my former life, there was a point where we started to identify who we were and really grow in our voice. And this is before COVID, so that's a good thing. But there came a point, even with the height of COVID and afterwards, where it was, this current situation of taking on everything for everybody has gotten old. Right. It's gotten old. It's not fulfilling. Right. We no longer want to live in that character, to the point where if I said, hey, I don't feel great today, I'm feeling XYZ, I'm not sure I can do this, it gets overlooked. It's like, well, that's impossible because you're G. Right. G can do everything. G knows everything. It's like, I don't know everything. I can't do everything. If I tell you there's a problem, there's a problem. Right. But when you decide to be that person who does say no, who does say, you know what, I appreciate you and your perception, but your perception is not my reality. Right. And if you have insecurities, you need to see a therapist. All of a sudden, you are now the angry Black woman. Because God forbid that you actually set boundaries for yourself. Right. And tell people that I have my own emotional baggage. I'm not taking yours too. Like, in what world would you be the person to say no to those macro and microaggressions? Right. Little snide remarks, the code language. How dare you tell me these things? Right. So this angry Black woman, now from what I can see, I'm just going on like what I'm seeing out here, that woman tends to be very self-aware. She's very confident in herself, and she can articulate what is and isn't appropriate for her in her emotional capacity. Right? Like that no is a complete sentence, it's a complete sentence. Right. It is a no. How do we get beyond that? Because there are some, and I think I'm going to look at professionals, young women, who are trying to find their way, and it's like, how do I navigate these waters? Because a lot of it I came into contact with in the workplace, but even outside, right? Like even outside the workplace, there were people who were like, you know, and I've told you this because it's the way we were, it's the way we were raised. But when people would say, "Oh my God, Gwendolyn, you look so good today,"
Right.
and I would be like, "But I look good every day." So, like, why would I? But then would get upset when I wouldn't thank them for that acknowledgement. Well, I don't need your acknowledgement. Like, I don't understand like why I would thank you for that, and then feel like
I am all about like exploring courtesies and
yes.
like, you know, graciousness, because I struggle with that, as you said. Like, you know, we're Southern Black.
You're better than me. You are much better than me.
We are Southern Black women. We are supposed to act with grace. You know,
Mm-hmm.
And I think that I carry myself with grace, but also like, yes, some might consider me an angry Black woman. You know what I mean? Like, and a lot of times, people who are showing up as angry, or who we read as angry, is really just, you know, people who have opinions, people who have boundaries, people who are not taking the BS. Audre Lorde, who is, you know, really brilliant poet and thinker, who is passed on now, has an essay where she talks about like anger and how anger is filled with information. Right? Now, sometimes that information, we might be displacing the anger, but there's a root and a foundation to like why we're angry. And I think that it is very important for people to explore that, because that's what makes you powerful. Like, it's one thing to be angry about what is happening around you, but like also not have done the work to really understand why that anger is there.
Yeah.
It could be anything from experiences from childhood to experiences with being bullied in high school, to experiences in romantic relationships, to experiences in how we were treated on jobs. You know what I mean? It's very important because that's a part of like emotional intelligence, right? Is to understand like, oh, okay, what is the source? I'm very frustrated. I'm agitated. This pisses me off. Sorry, Mom.
That's Mom's language. Mother, she'll be okay with that one.
You know, but I think it's very important to do the work to understand like the sources of that frustration, of that anger, whatever it is, so that we can articulate and require more. Right? But I also think that, I think that Black women have every right to be angry. Everything that I'm ever pissed off about is rightfully so that I am, you know? But at the same time, it's very important for us to be able to communicate like what the source of that anger is, because then we can transform that anger into something else, right? Like if I'm angry with you about something, and I can articulate to you what I'm angry about and tell you what I need in order to move through this moment of anger. And whether we're talking about individual relationships, whether we're talking about our relationships with systems, like whatever kind of relationship, then that means that we can transform that anger into something else. Bitterness, resentment, those types of things come when we are holding on to the information, but we are not creating a path to communicate, to understand first, and then communicate what is what the information says. You know? But I also think that, so like, one, yes, Black women have every right to be angry a lot. Two, sometimes us just, as you said, saying no, setting boundaries, making a decision around our worth and what we are going to accept and what we won't accept makes us be perceived as angry. It's like, no, I'm not angry. I just know my value and worth, and I know that I don't have to deal with this. You know what I mean? And I get to say something. I get to speak up, which is another thing. Like, Black women are expected to suffer in silence so many times. And the moment that you choose not to do that, the moment that you stand up, people are going to say you're angry, you're bitter, you're all of these things. It's just like, yeah, I get to say no. I get to stand up. I get to stand in my worth and value as a human being. And, if you want to translate that into me being angry, well, then I guess I'm angry. It's kind of like these conversations that are going around about like women being in their feminine versus their masculine.
I was going to go there because I thought to myself, in what world does any of that even make sense? It is so beyond ridiculous.
Where they're like, oh, if you do this as a woman, you're not in your feminine. I'm like, well, I do that. I do that thing. I do that thing. So I guess I am not, I just refuse to subscribe to these things.
Yes.
And so, I mean, if it makes you feel better to call me angry because I am standing up for myself, because I have ideas and opinions I can share and will share, then, I mean, that's a you problem. Like you said, that's not a me problem. I think that is a huge thing that Black women have to do, is understanding what is yours to carry and what is not.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like understanding, okay, this is because we do want to be self-aware, right? Like maybe we are showing up with a lot of hostility and resentment. Maybe we do need to go and talk to somebody about that. Maybe we have some anxiety issues that are showing up as irritability that can also be coded as angry. So it is important for us to be self-accountable and self-reflective. But at the same time, once you check those boxes, you're like, wait, so me saying this or me behaving like this, I'm being called angry. Am I showing up in a certain way? Do I need to check in with myself? And once you realize that you don't, you're like, oh, I'm going to hand that back to you, sweetheart. Here, baby. Here, baby. Here, baby. You can have that right on back. Yeah. That's not mine.
I don't need that one.
Remember, strong Black woman. Got enough on these shoulders. I'm not taking
too much.
Your projections, your hurt feelings, your, a lot of times for our men, feelings of inadequacy. But you got to work that out on your own. It's not my responsibility. How can I, it's these conversations around manhood. Like, how can I take something away that's already yours? That's yours.
Nothing to do with me.
Nobody can take my femininity away. It's mine.
No, not at all. Not at all. It is. I think, and I keep going back here.
And let me pause and say, and that doesn't mean that we should reject our brothers or throw them away or just be like, that's you. That's a you problem. You know what I mean? No, like we can be compassionate and understanding, and like I understand that the world makes you feel inadequate, right? Yeah. I understand that this system of patriarchy says that you're only a man if you could do this.
All of these things.
Struggle doing this, right? So like we can have compassion for that, but that doesn't mean that we have to submit our lives to that foolishness.
Yes. Yeah, that part I agree with. Because I am fully aware for myself, as I told you before, I don't do well with code language. I have no place. For as long as I have worked in a full-time capacity, I was fully aware of, people doing like passive-aggressive things. I don't do passive-aggressive. If you're going to talk about me...
Aggressive, okay?
you already know I tend to hit first and then ask questions. So I don't know exactly where you put some of that. But I think about, like, as long as I have been working in a full-time capacity, I never code switch. I was always going to say what I said and call it a day.
Yeah.
People were like, how are you able to just be you? Because I am me. Like there's no other place to be. However, I do remember that there were words that were used with me. Some of them are, as I said before, the idea of being difficult. Then people started using like intimidating. And in the beginning, I thought, okay, well, how do I adjust? Because I want someone to feel comfortable in my space.
Right.
And then I got to a place around 20 something, and I thought, you know what? I'm not the problem.
Right.
If you have some insecurities and other issues that you need to deal with, then again, you should get a therapist.
Yeah.
You really should
Yeah.
get a therapist, because there are a lot of people who will put that sort of, they will attempt to put that on you and be like, oh my God, like you're so intimidating, and I don't even know if I can talk to you.
Yeah.
You know what? I'm not gonna do it. Wiggly ain't gonna do it. I'm gonna cuss somebody out. You know, I almost went there. You know, I'm still a little, I almost went there. But it's those kinds of things that we typically, I will say, and there are memes about it. You can find videos about it, how they treat Black women in the workplace, and it's real.
Yeah.
Like there's a reason why we can all identify with some of these passive aggressive code language. But when you decide that you are not going to take that and accept it and say, you know what, if you feel some kind of way because I am confident and I'm very tall and I look this damn good every bloody day, I almost said something else, then you know, almost said then you should probably ask yourself, what are you afraid of? Right? Like what in you is not enough?
Am I intimidating or are you intimidated? Because those are two different things.
Yeah.
And like, this is why people have to develop the skills of self-check-in.
Yeah.
Because I have those moments where I'm just like looking at something and I'm kind of judging. And then I'm like, girl, who cares? That's none of your business. That affects you not at all. If you're feeling some type, if something is rising up in you, then check into like what that means. Yeah. For you. It's nobody else's responsibility. We're our own work. Yeah. You know? And honestly, our relationships, whether they are our work relationships or romantic relationships, our friendships, whatever it is, like those relationships are here to teach us more about ourselves. Make us deeply, like connect more deeply to ourselves. So that's always the thing with me. It's like that is always the thing with me. Like do the work. And this checking in work. It is work. Building confidence as a Black woman in a world that tells you constantly that you sit at the bottom of every standard of beauty. You know what I mean? Yeah. Where you're compared to, you know, apes and baboons and so forth, when you are told that yet you produce all of this glam and culture and everybody wants all your lips, hips, everything. Everything. You, it's a problem. It's not attractive. So, it's like, you really have to do the work of like building yourself up and bigging yourself up. And we both have done that work. And it's continual work, because it's like, you know, I think of myself, a woman who is, you know, brown skin. I have a bigger body than, you know, whatever the, you know, I'm not a size 8. And are we doing 8 now? Is it back to 8? Is it back to 8? I thought it was like big here, like super nothing here, and then I just. Booty is going away, girl. Like China. We'll talk about that in a minute. Oh, yes. All of the voluptuousness now, you know, the Kardashians have like, you know, gone back to their origins. So it's no longer in vogue. But even during a time when, you know, I couldn't even find things to wear that made me feel good and attractive, comfortable in my body. You know what I mean? Like having to work through all of that. And finally being at a point where I'm like, oh, I love and accept myself in this body. Now I'm like, I'm 46. Things are settling in places I don't want them to settle in. Now it's like the age thing.
Asian. It's
So
an
it's like
age. I'm
at
like,
every
oh my
level,
God.
you have to like constantly remind yourself, like, I'm the standard. You know what I mean? Like,
Right. I
yeah.
know. God knows. I'm like, well, look at me. I could be an Ebony Jet of the week now. Maybe I could rock one of them pages. 40 plus years later, it's like, it was about damn time. Because that was
Yeah,
not
I'm like, listen,
there when I was a
you over
teenager.
here with the pumps and the bump. Now, G.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm
I know.
over here like trying to figure out, all right, like that's a little bit too much bump. What are we gonna
Man,
but also
I
like
went out and got a jump rope. I was like, let me get a jump rope because if I can't get into these pants, we got problems. Because I'm not buying nothing else.
I go
But
to a fitness studio that is called the Queen's Compounds with Reggie C. All Black and brown women just encouraging each other and uplifting each other. You should see me in this gym competing with these women who I know are like late 50s, 60s, some of them. Like, I'm about to fall out. Like, okay, y'all are giving me a little something to work with and to do here, but like it's a constant work for Black women to it's one of those things where it's like that proverb or that old saying, they tried to bury us, they didn't know we were seeds. For Black women, there's just this constant like berating, this constant message of you are not enough in some way. Yeah. And so when you
no matter what,
show up in your power, once the world has continuously fed you that message and you decide to decline the acceptance of that and say, no, I'm not taking that on. It's not giving, like the kids say. I'm not taking that on. Then you're arrogant, you're seen mystical, you're seen all of these.
I called. I'm trying to think, like when I cut my hair, and my transformation was both mental and physical, right? So when I cut my hair in 2001, it was to say that Gwen she does not live here anymore. This is Gwendolyn.
Yes.
You got to recognize it. You got to, I was going to, say, well, I'm not going to do it. So when I was there, when I came back to Houston, and I remember pumping gas at the gas station. I was off of Alameda. And this guy came up and said, you know what? You're actually cute for a chick with short hair. And I thought, the fact that you think that that's a compliment, bruh, really? Seriously? Right?
Yep.
And then it's that deal of as if me and my short hair is not like amazingly beautiful. Right. Dude, check that. Like you got to check it, like keep it moving. But it's that. Now I want to do this before we go. We have had some great comments. I know Jesus Black Man he's now questioning his whole entire life. There is a question from him. It says, what is the feminist movement? I would like to understand the movement. So would you answer that question? What is the feminist movement?
Okay, so I mean there are many waves of feminism, but essentially when I think of feminism, I think of it as a response to patriarchy. And patriarchy essentially is a system, right? It is a system that is rooted in white supremacy that says that women essentially are considered the lesser of the genders, and are essentially put on the earth to do all of the things that we said earlier, right? To caretake, and like these things are not, it's not an issue, but it is the lack of choice in that, right? And so feminism says that patriarchy, which is the system that says men are supposed to do this and women are supposed to do this, right? Feminism says that no, people should be able to operate in the world however they wish to operate in the world, and that we should not submit to these types of gender norms that are hurtful to both men and women and children and all of this. So like when we talk about, for instance, toxic masculinity, or like these things that we're taught manhood means, right?
Yeah.
We see that as hurtful and problematic in the same way we are taught like all of this toxic femininity, like all the things that women are supposed to be. And if you feel sure in of that or differently than any of that is wrong. So that feminism kind of grew out when women no right to vote. Probably, I think about my mother who married, I think, 69. She could not buy a car on her own without a male member or my father's, signature. She could not have her own apartment. She could not, my father.
Yeah. Your video's acting up. Uh-oh. Hopefully we didn't lose her. Wait. I think Joe is frozen. Oh, please let us not lose her because we don't want to start over. All right. Okay, you're here. You're back. What? No, you're not. You're not back. Sorta. Kinda. You gotta love technology. Technology has not been your friend today, but it's okay. It's man-made. If a woman had done it, you know what I'm saying? So.
But like, want to still not back.
All right. I see your screen is frozen.
I don't know. For you.
Uh-oh. It's fighting. It is fighting to make its way back. It never fails. Oh, let's see here. What can I tell you? Let's see what happens here. Because you were just talking about your mother and what she was not able to do. Let's see if it's going to let her come back. If need be, we could probably take you out and bring you back in. We could try that. Let's see here. All right, well, while we're letting this other part get itself together. Oh, yeah, I think we're going to have her come back in. We just really wanted to have this free-flowing conversation to start a change in people's minds, right? Because I know for myself, the journey it's long. It does not end, and not taking on someone else's emotional baggage, finding your voice, building that confidence. None of that happens overnight. Like as she was mentioning, we have gone to school together. I know I was picked on for all the things, for every single thing. But when you decide to create your own idea of what is beautiful, and when you decide to start truly using your voice and articulating what is and isn't appropriate behavior for you, that it's going to ruffle some feathers. I will definitely say for myself, I have ruffled more than enough feathers, but at the exact same time, there were people who would speak to me in private and ask, how is it that you're able to just say no and not feel as if you have to give somebody a reason? How is it that you are able to show up as your authentic self in the workplace on a daily basis and no one have any kind of like concerns? Do people try to talk about me? Well, of course they do, but it's here nor there. What folks think about me is none of my business. First of all, don't care. But then second of all, because I don't do, as I said before, that sort of passive aggressive or those sort of subliminal messages. If you're going to talk about me, you need to let me know that you're talking about me, because I'm not paying attention. Like it doesn't resonate anywhere for me, and I give it no energy. So if it's happening, then you need to make me aware so that I need to listen or what have you. But the work that needs to be done, being self-aware, finding your voice, and growing that confidence, tasking. Do I highly suggest getting a therapist or a counselor? By all means, I do. I don't believe you should do it by yourself. Nothing against friends, nothing against, as I was getting my haircut at the barbershop, nothing against the barbershop talk, but to have a licensed therapist or counselor work with you to work through those things, it can make all the difference. And when you're looking at yourself and you're thinking about, as we mentioned before, that self-accountability, I have seen all the different parts of G. I am fully aware of who I am. I have seen those beautiful, bright parts, and I have also seen and recognized the parts that are like the deep, dark, and ugly, because everybody has it. Like, everybody has it. There is nobody who's perfect, so we can go ahead and toss that out. I am aware of those parts as well, and I wrap my arms around them. So when I know who I am as a person and how I show up in spaces, then I can give that grace and mercy to somebody else. I don't think to myself, oh my goodness, this person is ignorant or unaware or what have you. I think, you know what, that's something I would do. So I know where they're coming from. It could be from a place of hurt. It could be from a place of fear. Any of those things. It could definitely be that. But I showed them the same grace and mercy that I showed to myself. And that keeps me going forward. So, and I don't know if she's going to get back to me. We really want to talk about Angela White, i.e., as I like to call it, that used to be Black China. Absolutely love how she has returned to her idea of what is beautiful, took out all the fillers, and she has some fillers in her cheeks. She already had beautiful cheekbones, but she had fillers in her cheeks, fillers in her breasts, fillers in her butt. Like, she has removed all of them, and she is moving forward with this new identity of who she is. And I want to say that she talked about having faith over fame is what she was mentioning the other day. But beautiful woman, I mean, absolutely beautiful without all the extra. So then you find yourself asking, why would somebody who looks like her feel the need to go and get all of these things done, right? We all have our own reasons. But as we mentioned at the beginning of this talk, there is a war on women. There is a place where, you know, you are fed these messages on a consistent basis about what you should look like, what is deemed as attractive, how we define what's beautiful and smart. Rihanna, God bless her, I love how she wears pregnancy before and after being pregnant. You know, people are like, oh my gosh, she's pregnant, she should be covered up. But why? Why would she need to be covered up, right? Like, the woman's beautiful no matter what day of the week it is. So she's pregnant. Okay, that doesn't mean that she now has to wear like these frocks and things, right? So I love how there are women who are out there and they are changing the dynamic and changing the definition. But when we talk about not being someone's emotional mule, it is setting the boundaries. It is letting them know that I don't have the emotional or mental capacity to take on your bullshit. There you go. We can go ahead and call it. I know my mom going to watch this, but she's going to have to work with it. I don't have to carry that for you. And you may have friends, you may have family members who are emotional vampires. They come into your space. They suck all the air out of the room. It is a lot of woe is me. You may definitely have that. But there is a spot. There is a moment when you can decide, I am no longer going to take on all the things that happen to you or happen with you right now. I don't have an hour, 2 hours, 15 minutes to hear you bitch about something. I don't have it. If you're working in the workplace and you have people who were using code language, it is perfectly fine, as I have done, to ask them to define exactly what they mean when they said what they said. Because if you start holding people accountable for their behavior, it will definitely change the conversation. When people would come to me with, oh my gosh, she's so difficult. And so I'm like, and what exactly is difficult about working with me? What exactly about me is intimidating? Because it tells them, hey, if there are some insecurities that you have, if you are feeling less than, then we should figure out why you're feeling less than versus you attempting to put that on me, right? But that's work. Trust me when I say it is work. It is work to pick up new programming. It is work to do something different. It is work to go against the grain. I don't know what the current beauty standard is. I don't. Like I said, I don't subscribe to it, so I haven't looked at it. I know the last thing was everybody looked like Bratz dolls. That was the last thing I remember, was the whole like almond eyes and chiseled nose and whatever chin. Maybe it's the same, maybe it's changed, I'm not really sure. But these conversations, it's going to change what the future is. If you have a daughter, think about the messages you're sending to her. Just say it. Are you buying her baby dolls? Are you giving her the Easy Bake Oven? Or are you letting her know that she can do and be whatever her heart desires, right? Are you letting her decide to not wear the pinks and the baby blues and maybe she wants to be grunge at the age of 5, who knows? But these are those conversations, and this is that part of the programming that we talk about, that somewhere down the line, we're going to have to make a change. Well, we don't have to. But if we don't, there are some of us who are going to help make that change and bring about a different conversation. And just speaking as a Black woman, yeah, we will continue to say some things and show up in spaces and take the air out of the room, because we got to have some first someplace. So I want to thank everybody for tuning in. I hate that we didn't get the chance to chat with Joe about Angela White. Maybe we can get her back. But thank you for tuning in. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon.